This is a little more on the number patterns in the Bible. Boy, you know what? It is very, very thick and it's hard to see. It's hard to condense it in a video. My name is Dan Paulson, everyone. Welcome to the video. What I'm doing is something completely different with the Bible. I'm finding a verbal structure in there, but there is a numbering pattern in the chapters and verses that points right to it. It's an anomaly that I've been looking at for a long time, but not until I retired. For the last 6-7 years now, I've been dedicated to working on this, and I realize it takes that kind of time. What's difficult for us to understand is that we live in very modern biases. The Bible that we have is nothing like what they had when these stories were being disseminated. They didn't read and write, most people. They had to memorize the story. And the story, if it was a puzzle, it needed to contain all of the elements in it. So if there's a numbering pattern that is established in Abrahamic material, it needs to be put into every story. The stories are going out independently. You might get into a group and somebody says, I know Genesis, but nothing else. Anybody know Exodus? No. I know Leviticus. Okay, that's cool. How about anybody else? Numbers, Deuteronomy, yay. They would have to verbally tell the stories. They had to have them memorized. And in doing so, they would have access to patterns through memorization that we don't have access to. Think of it this way. Twinkle, twinkle, little star, how I wonder what you are. Up above the world so high, like a diamond in the sky. Twinkle, twinkle, little star, how I wonder what you are. Oh, I memorized that. How many times was twinkle said? How about star? How about, okay, that's a very simple one, but this is a very complex version of that, remembering that we can't escape our media. What did they have? These stories. These are big. Have to imagine yourself back there with nothing to do, no electricity. You walk to your job. We struggled and worked together in a community and shared stories. We have to understand there's something different going on in these stories than what we can see by looking at a pile of them in the Bible, thinking that we are on top of the world. We really don't know them very deeply. Okay. I want to say that it is possible to get into it, but it takes a lot of time. We're not spending the time. They had the time. They had nothing else. This is what they did. We've lost access to it. It's very complicated for us. We're so busy, we don't give it the time. It takes that kind of time. And you see what I'm doing is using the computer to supplement the fact that I don't have it memorized. When I go searching for nouns and verbs, I require the computer to show me that because I don't have the stories memorized. But I'm doing it enough that I'm able to now consolidate things and see a larger group of patterns. These patterns I've talked about before, and I think only certain brain types kind of pick this stuff out. Most people don't. I remember in Sunday school as a kid asking, how come everything's 3, 7, 40, 12? Those all show up all the time. That's just the way it is, Danny. But I remember asking questions like, Jesus is feeding the multitude. Do you think they had tartar sauce? Oh, Danny, that's a good question. Maybe they did. Hey, if Jesus was hungry and he made the fig tree die, why didn't he just make it be full of figs? Well, that's just not the way the story goes, Danny. At some point, they get tired of it, and you're asking questions nobody else asks. And later on, you look and you go, there's reasons for those. I was onto something back then, and they didn't see it. And I didn't have the knowledge or the skills or the time to figure it out. Life had to happen for a long time first before I would get back to it. All right, what this pattern is a numbering system that parallels stages in a human life. When you're a child and you're innocent and you have not experienced life yet, everything is good, it's all happy, but you're self-aware, that's 7 and 3 right there are at that same point. It's like, what? The Garden of Eden? Adam and Eve? We are Adam and Eve. We are in the Garden of Eden. This is a metaphor. This is our conscious and our subconscious. We're conscious and self-aware, but we're pure state. We have not yet sinned, so we're in the Garden of Eden. I need to add this in. Everything is mentally interactive. Sin is an analogous term. It does not mean what you think it means. Sin means I have gone off and judged something now. I've judged something poorly. I had this experience. I hate this, or I've got this emotional stored as a result, and I'm going to go experience that. That's what sin truly is. Everybody is going to sin and fall short of the glory of God. But what that means is everybody's going to experience life and lose contact with their higher self and begin living through the memories. While the higher awareness is always there, we just have to get to a point in time where we know to get back to it. We're uncovered from anything. That's a state of being. That happens on day 7. and 7 is repeated 3 times there. What they're going to be doing is developing a numbering pattern that is going to replicate that early state without it sounding like it's replicating that early state. As long as you keep calling it 3-7, it doesn't sound like Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden or Abram and Sarai in Canaan in a land of famine. These start sounding repetitive. Put up some 3s and 7s, or we're going to obscure it even more. Let's repeat nouns or verbs 3 or 7 times. Ooh, it starts getting thick and you're like, what the hell? Yeah, it takes a lot to get into this, but you have to learn it on your own. All I can do is throw nouns and verbs on the table. People have to learn this on their own to have it make sense. Anybody teaching you what it's all about is the blind leading the blind. You got to figure this out on your own. And with respect to the Bible, if you are a theist or an atheist, you don't have it figured out. There's a third option, a middle path, an inward path. You guys are both doing the same thing. Even though you're fighting over the validity of it, you're both looking outward. You have to look inward. So the literalist, the atheist, and the theist, all three of them are looking outward. You have to look inward and then interpret it. All right, due to how intensive this gets, I'm going to just really kind of cover some high points here. It would actually, it's really big. Again, they're doing this forever. Imagine learning to write modern video games or something like that from scratch. You don't know anything, then you're going to go all the way through until you know how to do it. It's going to take that kind of time. It's that way. Right here, though, in Genesis, I see 7, 7, 7 repeated 3 times, and Archbishop Langton conveniently for our help, to help us, put that on verse 3 right there. That right there is the foundation of the 7-3 grid. When I asked everybody as a kid, how come there's 3s and 7s all the time? This is where it starts, right here. 7 said 3 times. The next time we get a sequence of numbers like that is down here in chapter 4 with Cain. We have a 7-fold, truly Lamech 70 and 7-fold. You look at that and go, well, that's a strange thing. We've got our Cain and Abel split right there. Cain kills Abel, and there's a couple of funny things going on right here. But Lamech is wondering about being punished for something, and is said that if Cain be avenged 7-fold, truly Lamech 70 and 7-fold. And you just go, God, that doesn't make any sense. But what I see here is a 7 and a 7, and in the middle of it a 70. I look at it that way and go, just stop looking at the words. Look at the numbers. What's there? A 7, a 70, and a 7, or a 7-fold. And what I do is I say, well, you know what? That 3 and that 7 paralleled Garden of Eden up there. I've covered that previously. I'm going to grab that 70 and put it on the list too. So I begin this collection process. You get down here and you begin seeing things like, as I look through here, I see 807, 912. Well, I don't care about the 800 and 900 quite yet. I wonder, why is that 7 there? And why is that 12 there? And I look through and I see more down here. 80 and 180 and 7. And 2, 9, 2, 5. There's numbers that are appearing here that if I didn't treat them as a compound number, then that looks familiar to me. So I grab the 30, the 7, and the 12. And also, and I've shown this before, I look at the 900 and go, that's just weird. What would a 900 be doing here? And this is the only place it is. 900 is repeated exactly 7 times in this analog form. What are they doing? They're using the 900 as a surrogate for a 7. We're just put another layer into it. We can't keep putting 7 and 30 and 7 and 7 and 7 and 12 and 7 and 15. So let's obscure it more. Let's put 900 7 times and write it into a goofy story about age. Pull out the numbers. And later versions that muck this up, they'll just turn around and say 930. This is 930. Those are 2 different numbers. That's a 100 and a 5. That's an 800 and a 7. That's a 900 and a 12. They're not compound. Keep them separated. 800 is also said exactly 7 times. they're doing the same thing. They're using the 800 and 900 as surrogates to gather other numbers. It starts getting complicated from here, but boom, we gather a list. We start gathering a ton of things. What do we have here? All right, so I've jumped ahead here. I've been working on this for a long time, as I said. There's a number analog count, the 3-7 grid. Eden, 7 is repeated 3 times, parallel with each other. That's the conscious and inner self are in pure state. Our life has not yet collected judgments. So Eden, pure soul state. And these are not exactly accurate, but this is what I've got so far. This is what I've gathered up. The 1, 2, there's the 3 and the 7, the 12, the 40, you see those, plus other numbers as well. All these other numbers. There's the 70, the first one gathered up. So all of these are going to go return to this pure state. They've just created an entire pile of numbers here that when you use them, they're all going to point back to the same place right here. It's a way to restart a sequence over and over again while obscuring it. These 22 numbers right here are repeated over 6,052 times in the Bible. That's why as a kid I said, why do they keep repeating? They do. Now there's another layer to this. The way that these analogs work is that this is going to be, these are all good things up here if you put that in there. If I were to look in Genesis, all right, here's another layer to how that numbering pattern works. This is where it's important to know how many times nouns and verbs are repeated. Remember after the flood, what happens is that Noah was naked, nakedness, the nakedness. If you go put nakedness in here, you will see that nakedness is repeated 5 times. 5 is a pure state. What if we put wine in here? He was drunk on wine. Wine is repeated 12 times. We're not talking about the physical world. He wasn't drunk on wine and physically naked. He was spiritually feeling better off of his new experience and was uncovered from his shame. And you know by how many times these are repeated whether they're good or bad. Nakedness is not bad. Nakedness is good. What about Sodom? 21. We're on our list of things there that are not okay. 21 is... Honestly, let's make it plain language. This is what the numbering is. 7 is before you've judged anything in life. 8 is when you've judged things in life. You've lost your purity now. I am now covered with something. At the same time, when you look at 8, 8 is when circumcision is supposed to happen. Metaphorically, what is that? I have, what is that? Pain through childbirth continuous now. What I want to have is a circumcision or a representative idea of the cutting off of this judgment. Circumcision is, if in the physical world, it's cutting off the foreskin. In the spiritual world, it's letting go of the judgment, unjudging what you've judged. You've judged that your life is bad. Now you must unjudge it or your life isn't going to be okay. That's spiritual circumcision. All right, I'm going to show a few more quick things in Genesis. I would like to spend time in the book of Luke, actually, showing how this pattern is very much in place there. It's got some modernization to it in Luke that makes it easier to see some things in the analogs. So what I'm doing here is just focusing on the numbering pattern that we're going to bring with us to Luke. All right, the next thing I wanted to say is, when does the flood start? Life has gone bad. It's time to destroy the earth. What do we have in a macro numbering pattern? Chapter 7. 7 is when the flood occurs. That's when it's time to wipe everything out and start over. 7 is pure state. If we jumped ahead, I'm going to just go down to 12. 12 is pure state. And the Lord said to Abram, get out of your country, from your kindred and your father's house, and into the land I will show you. 12 is a starting over again. Not only is it calling Abram and Sarai, we see that Abram is 70 and 5. There's our 70 and there's our 5. And we see that Sarai's name is repeated exactly 17 times. We have that is equivalent to Adam and Eve, 7:3, naked and unashamed in the Garden of Eden. We have Abram and Sarai, 70 and 5, and 17 in the land of Canaan, in a land of famine. It's a restarting of the motif, but the numbering pattern is going to keep us locked into this is pure state. Not only is it 12, but these numbers are coming from that pattern, and if you repeat it, they're pure. 17. All right, things go bad here. 13. I'll kind of just scan through this again, like I said. When the calling happens is where? And when Abram was 90 years old and 9, and the Lord appeared to Abram and said to him, 90 and 9, it's time to move on. Where are we? Chapter 17. 17 is when the sequence of the monomyth begins, the purity trip. All right, so we've got this micro and macro. This is the macro numbering. This is already built into the stories. If you knew the story, you wouldn't need to have it numbered like this. These are actual natural chapters. But Langton put the chapters in there to say, hey, look, do you see this? It's right here. I wouldn't have spotted it if he hadn't put those verses in there. It was he was instrumental in my understanding because he did some goofy stuff, and I had to figure, and when you figure out what he's doing, you realize, damn it, he's pointing the way. That's what. What do we have down here in verse 12? And he that is 8 days old shall be circumcised among you. All right, this is so heavily encoded. It's like, oh, this boggles the mind. What a puzzle. What a wonderful puzzle. Let's go to Luke. Okay, watch this. First of all, we've got our 7-3 acknowledgement wired into it. We've got a 7. Barren is repeated 3 times. This is some of the goofy stuff that Langton did as he's breaking it up. He's not creating verses out of complete sentences. Sometimes yes, sometimes no. He's breaking them up in goofy ways. If you look, he's pushing everything into the right numbered location. If the numbers weren't there, they still appear in this order. We would have to have it memorized. But since we don't, he's showing us where they are. 7. Barren, said 3 times. All right, now, watch this. Verse 21, 8. When it was 8 days, circumcising of the child, that's Jesus, circumcision. See the 21 and the 8 alignment? He was 12 years old when they went up to Jerusalem after the custom of the feast. And it came to pass that after 3 days they found him in the temple. Now in the 15th year of the reign of Tiberius Caesar. And Jesus himself began to be about 30 years of age, being, it was supposed, the son of Joseph, which was the son of Heli. And Jesus, being full of the Holy Ghost, returned from Jordan and was led by the Spirit into the wilderness, being 40 days, and was tempted of the devil. And in those days he did eat nothing, and when they were ended, he afterward hungered. He was being tempted of the devil for 40 days. This is pure time. See the numbers? 40, 30, 12, 3. We got a 15 in there too. Yeah. Okay, this is kind of only one layer, but you see that. This starting point is a pure early point. This is early stage, and we're repeating nouns and verbs very specifically. What I'm going to do is step into something else in Luke and show you now a micro layer. Into chapter 2, we're going to find a repeat of the 7-3 grid in chapter 2, interestingly. 7, and brought forth. Brought forth exactly 3 times. So we've got we've got one there. What was this one up here? On 57, we have a brought forth. So we got a 50 and a 7 combined. And down here, we've got a 7. I forgot about that first one up there. So we got some layering going on in here. Down into the next one, there's the 21 and the 8. Written 17 times. Written is the law. Written 17. That's the pure state right there. Chapter 3, verse 7. When we get down into verse 7, we're going to find wrath. Is repeated exactly 3 times. We're maintaining a considerable number pattern. Baptized, you see right there? That's a good thing, right? We want to be baptizing is purifying. Baptizing would be the same as washing off or circumcision, unjudging, forgiving the odd against your brother, clearing the mote from your eye. All of those are the same thing. Okay. When I get down to chapter 4, get into verse 7 and look at again what we have going on. Worship. One of them is worshipped. past tense at the end. So I've got 3 there. I want to make sure to keep an eye on some of these, though. There could be a couple of them that might not be exactly right, but so many are that I know I'm on to something, but I know it's bigger than what I can yet grasp. What I'm going to do here is chapter 7. This is a purifying one, right? Chapter 7, that's the macro. Let's go to the micro within the macro. I'm going to go to verse 47. Wherefore I say to you, her sins which are many are forgiven, for she loved much. But to whom little is forgiven, the same loveth little. So we have a female component, forgiveness, purification right there, 47. This is the story about the sinner woman who would not stop washing his feet and caring for him and whatnot. This represents the idea that we ourselves are mourning to ourselves and forgiving ourselves. But you see, chapter 7, verse 47. We've got a 40 and a 7 combined, which is permissible. Here is 1 in 8, but it's 47 again. And the woman saw that she was not hid. She came trembling and falling down before him. She declared unto him before all the people for what cause she had touched him and how she was immediately healed. Do you see the female healing component in the verse 47? Chapter 9, 47. Same 47. And Jesus, perceiving the thought of their heart, took a child and set him by him. Whoever shall receive this child in my name receiveth me. This is pure state right here. 47, the child, the pure child. Look what happens if I jump to 13 here. This one just kind of, it's pretty obvious. We get down to 7 and it's got a 3 in there. He said to the dresser of his vineyard, behold, these 3 years I come seeking fruit on this fig tree and find none. Cut it down. Why cumber it the ground? Anyway, so we have a 7 and 3 acknowledgement right there. And the fruit tree, what is the fig tree? It's something that it grows inside of you. This plays out in the mind, all of it. Why would you have something? Why cumbereth it the ground? This is such artful stuff. It's a tree. It's something that's growing from you. Why cumbereth it the ground? Why are you allowing it? What is the ground? The ground is your garden. Why allow it to grow there? Why give it life? This is something that's not doing you any good. Why do you have it planted in your garden that just doesn't produce anything after 3 years? And he answered and said to him, Lord, let it alone. Also, I shall dig about it and dung it. So he's going to try to get it going. And if it bear fruit, well, and if not, then after that, then I'll cut it down. So he's saying, yeah, I will resolve this issue. Let me see if it works out. And if not, then I'll get rid of it. So it's kind of a variation of the other fig tree story, but a little more relaxed. Instead of just commanding it to die, he's giving it a chance. And, okay, you know what? I think I should probably quit right there. I think that they get too big and too deep and people might be going, I have no idea what you're talking about there. It's hard to wrap into it. It does take time, and it takes really reading a lot of stuff, honestly. It's an astounding amount of research that goes into it, and then you realize, God, we're not tapping it. You see what I'm doing? I'm barely there, and I don't quite have it all figured out, but I have it figured out enough to go, boy, I see that pattern. What I don't know is just all of where the numbers are. You know, what does a 9 always mean? It's time to move on. 8 is always a failure. 10 is what? 12, it's time to move on. 13, failure. 14, division. 15, yeah, I don't know. 16 is going to represent something again like 6 is where the flood happened. So right before Noah was called, chapter 6. Right before Abram is called, chapter 16. Yeah, shit. So the sequence is like that. It's a human life sequence, but it's patterned in the numbers, and it's very difficult to see. Anyway, all right. I made this video. I've got another one that I want to make that describes actually interacting with it for the healing process. That's a lot more complicated. I don't do that very often. I do videos like that once in a while, but interacting with the material is very, I would say, psychological. And for some people, you have to be careful. I mean, you're facing the things that you don't want to face, the things that are scary and bad and whatnot. So how bad is it? I mean, I was able to face all of my stuff. There was abuse, there was suicide, there was molestation. I was able to face that stuff mentally without, at some point I had to face it. And when I didn't face it is when life had gotten really bad. So at some point you realize, boy, in order to change my life, I'm this mass of things that I'm not resolving, and I must resolve them. But the stories here are sequencing through, always showing you, you're starting at a pure state, you're going through a sequence, you get divided, then it's time to turn inward, and you must go in and defeat what is within, and then it starts over again. Noah gets covered up after the flood, not because you turn in and go, you know what, I see what happened. I'm a bundle of memories. I'm going to let that go and then just forget it and start over. It doesn't work like that. Not for this brain type. You're going to have to resolve everything. You say, I got molested. I got to resolve that. I stole $10 out of grandma's purse one time and she's passed along and I feel guilty. How do I resolve that? Go find some elderly woman and give $20 or something. You're trying to find ways of making restitution for stupid things you did that you feel guilt over until you don't feel guilt about them. As you get into the stories, you're going to see goofy things. There is no hell. Things get trapped away. Sheol is this. If you went to the Enuma Elish, you would see that the bad element gets trapped in a net after the destruction. If you were going to Greek myth, you see that the harpies, they're the cyclical pain, defiling the food daily. And Zeus makes them leave. In many stories, there's this element of a bad person that gets put away and trapped. They don't get killed, they don't get destroyed. The bad element represents the memory. And trapping it away represents the idea that I have rendered it inert. This memory used to damage me daily. It was cyclical pain. It was defiling my food daily. I couldn't survive with it. Now, however, it is no longer able to hurt me. The reason is because the memory of what happened will never go away. You can't change what happened. You have to change the way you perceive it so that it no longer hurts you anymore. It's trapped in the net. It's held away by Zeus, the higher awareness somehow. Those all represent the idea that we've got memories and that we have to resolve the memories. Otherwise, you live through the memories. So the healing process becomes a lot more intense, and it's more of a lifelong thing, plus the idea that, okay, well, I started out this way, and I had this kind of friends in my, this relationship, all that kind of stuff. But as I'm going through my changes, I don't fit here anymore. I must move on. I must say goodbye to everybody, even if that means divorce. I must go. I'm not this. Then you settle down someplace else. You grow, you develop, you feel great. You reestablish relationships and friendships, and you continue to grow, and guess what happens? At some point, you're down the road going, whew, what do I do? There's a weird thing, though, too. People say try to resolve everything before you're in relationships. You should do that, absolutely. However, there are things that are not going to emerge or become triggered unless you're in the relationship. You don't know it's even a problem until you're in a position to have it triggered. So the stuff is going to continue to happen regardless. What you really need to do is to be with a person that is on a similar path. Gospel of Thomas. I can't remember what it is. Something up. I will call you 1 out of 1,000, 2 out of 10,000 or something like that. Not very many people are going to do this, and that's taught across the board. But 2, it's like, whoa, that's even more rare if you find somebody. My wife helps me. She's not on this path, but she allows me to talk. She allows me to express myself, which is important in order to talk through this stuff. Resolving it is getting to a point where mentally you're no longer hanging on to it in the same emotional state. You have to resolve it. You have to talk through it and figure it out and look at it. What keeps it in place is the fact that we hate it and we don't want to look at it. And when we do, we hate it even more. So what we're doing, unbeknownst to us, is every time we see it emerge, we're fertilizing it and putting it back away. And it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And something that happened in childhood that was like, boy, that was kind of creepy, later on is something that puts me in a rage. I hate the son of a bitch for that. It got worse and worse as time went on, but we're living through that. And it's our thinking that's done it. And the only way to make that change is you don't forgive the other person. What you do is you look at your memory and you look at the emotional state of it and you resolve the emotional state. Forget the other person. You can know you have to forgive. Okay, I forgive them. I just don't ever want to see him again. I hate him because it's not really resolved. It has to be resolved up here. Forget out there. If it's resolved up here, it'll be fine out there. But you don't resolve it out there to fix it up here. You fix it up here to resolve it out there. This creates that. That does not create this. We judge that. And as we judge it, that creates up here, which creates more and more of the same thing. We have to extract ourselves from that. We're in thought patterns. Buddha, all that we are is the result of what we have thought. It's founded on our thoughts. It's based in our thoughts. If a person has experienced a bad judgment, pain follows them, like the wheel follows the foot of the ox that draws the carriage. Remember the technique? We are that. I'm the foot of the ox that draws the carriage. I'm the ox drawing the carriage through life. You are. Pain follows, cyclical. This negative thought is in there, and it's going to follow us cyclically through life. But Buddha says it in plain language. All that we are is a result of what we have thought. It's based on our thought. It's founded in our thoughts. That's how we heal ourselves. We have to go into our brains and use thought. Entering the narrow gate, crossing the threshold. All of that in the stories is exactly that, going in and healing. In fact, when Moses crosses the Red Sea with the Israelites and they go into the desert, and you'll notice they need God's help, and they go into the desert for 40 years. There's that 40, there's that pure state, there's the desert, there's a devoid place. You've crossed the threshold, you went into some place, and you're going to spend the time necessary to achieve that pure state. It's not 40 years, it's not 40 days in the wilderness. It's going to be pure state. You stay there till it's done. And you minimize a diet. You have to live, that's a mental diet. You let the past go. Leave the past behind. Pharaoh and all that, the cyclical pain, the plagues, the struggle to leave the past. You can go, no you can't. You can go, no you can't. You can go, no you can't. Those are struggles. Jesus is going to get baptized, and God is going to show up and say, here's my son whom I am well pleased. God is always an element in crossing the threshold. That is because that is the higher awareness. We need to engage with the higher awareness in order to do this. That's a part of the healing process that I'll, in the next video, yeah. So, when Jesus is baptized, then God appears there, and then he spends 40 days in the wilderness with no diet. The temptation is there all the time. Those are representing the same thing. It's us turning inward and going to it. I got a habit. I got things that I'm stuck in. I got alcohol. I got drugs. I got relationships. I got somehow something that is very bad. It's derogatory. And despite the fact that every day I say I'm done with it, I give right back in. It's this in and out, the cycle. You know the strong man's coming. You need to make preparations, but we don't. As we're caught up into these cycles, that's what the material is trying to teach us, is how to get out of it. But in this place where you get away from it, you've got to spend the time away from the habit or the whatever it is to make the change. The flood, 40 days, 40 nights. You see those patterns? All right. I think I better wrap this video up. The numbers have been something that have really, they've always fascinated me because I saw something there and I couldn't figure it out. The more I work at it, the more you see little bits and pieces, and that grows in a little bit more. Pretty soon it's like, boy, I see this whole scaffolding of numbering patterns and words being repeated a certain amount of times, and this is an analog, naked. Oh, if you don't interpret it, you don't know what to do with it. If you know how many times it's repeated and what that number means, you know that it means mentally, spiritually, a pure state. And you're like, wow, this is magical material. It's really intense stuff. We have no idea. Anyway, all right. See you in the next video.